The earliest memory I have of my grandfather is the cover of the book written about him. There's a picture of a man falling down a flight of stairs. The title of the book, The Killing of the Imam.
Andere manier is het hier. Als jij jong en je gekregen die manierlijkheid van mens en je pas je nu op niet, dan kom je lager als het dier van manierlijkheid.
What do you think of when you hear apartheid? I think of this man, my grandfather. I think about what it is that would drive someone to sacrifice their life and liberty for other than themselves. What is it that drives the human soul against its own self, for the greater good? Love, mercy, justice, all of the above? I am one of 4 children from a Libyan political exiled father and a Cape Malay mother, self-exiled from South Africa. Both landing in the UK in the late 60s, both leaving strong identities to forge new ones. I was born in London in 1975, 2 years before Steve Biko was killed, and 6 years after they killed my grandfather. London was a place for anyone to create their own identity if they wished, stick to the one they had, or not to have one at all. It was a place where, from the beginning of a bus journey, I would get abuse from working class whites calling me a nigger, and at the end from working class blacks calling me a paki, where the abuse was hidden in the middle classes and the upper classes were nowhere to be seen. Internal exile and apartheid of different sorts, perhaps not that bad. It was actually the kind of place where the thread that could hold it all together was belief. Islam for me was a melting pot where colours would combine and the classes would mix, a place of common ground and shared identity. The Islam I grew up with was not the Islam of terrorists and extremists. It was the Islam of revolution and integration. In some ways it still is. In others, it's changed a great deal.
If indeed these attacks were carried out by Al-Qaeda affiliated cells, that these people are
Amongst the so-called coloureds of the Western Cape, the Cape Malay Muslims were rebellious slaves exiled there by the Dutch. They were banned from practicing their religion, and it was on this basis that they justified their rebellion. Almost 400 years later, Imam Abdullah Haron, working with Muslims and non-Muslims, picked up the revolutionary thread of his forefathers and broke the conservatism that the Muslims had now fallen into. In May of 1969, he was detained under the Terrorism Act of 1967. 4 months later, he was dead. He was 45 years old. He was my grandfather. The official report stated that he had fallen down a flight of stairs, a common cause of death during apartheid's dark days. The autopsy revealed massive bruising and hemorrhaging, unlikely to have been caused by falling down 3 small steps. It was obvious that he had been killed at the hands of the South African government. He became an icon in the struggle against oppression. This is the story of his life, his death, his legacy.
They said said they found the 7 bruises on him, I don't know. And anyway.
But what did they say? How he died?
They say he fell on the stairs. He fell from the stairs. Flight of stairs. So they said, well, he passed away. The afternoon. They said, the afternoon he passed away.
Phone call came from Cape Town. It was a shock to the system. We always thought they were releasing.
My sister was far away and I was very, very young. So I mean, I couldn't understand, as I said, the concept of the death or the tragedy.
To basically try to weigh things, to try to make sense of the tragedy that unfolded and what continued to unfold. So,
Unforeseen by anyone, the death of the Imam was to leave great traumatic scars on his family and his community.